Hey guys, what's up? Bring Me the Boa here, and in today's video we're going to actually be doing something more biologically related. I'm gonna move some of this just so that way you guys can, see things a little bit better. Maybe move the camera a little bit. Oh, sorry about that. Gonna move it a little bit this way so that way I can easily kind of, manipulate the camera. So that way you guys can see me, and then when I need you to see some cards, and index cards that I've illustrated stuff on to help get my points across better. But today I had to take a breath because I'm excited to cover this topic, but I'm also kind of nervous because I want to cover it to the best of my current abilities. And so, buckle up, this is going to be a little bit of a longer one, even though I can't film longer than 23 minutes, I think, so won't be longer than half an hour, at least. But without further ado, today we are going to discuss a topic that I've been wanting to discuss, the difference between species, subspecies, and locality. Now, I'm bringing this up now, even though I don't have any examples to really show, because this is going to be vocabulary I'm going to mention in the future, when I start actually going out and looking for Mexican hog noses with more tenacity, and when I start actually venturing outside of Arizona to find more of the heterodon species, as well as there's some other species of snakes in Arizona that I want to find localities of. The speckled rattlesnake. Because they all have unique colors based on their locality, but they're not different species or subspecies, and this is why I'm making this video, so that now you'll have context that will be needed later. So in this video I'm going to be kind of talking about where locality fits into subspecies and species. I'm also trying to kind of frame this information and the video kind of how I did with the distinction between amphibians and reptiles on an evolutionary scale. It's going to be similar and kind of in the same vein as that video. So me using note cards, me having doodles and stuff, kind of trying to explain things and having notes. A lot of this I've been studying frequently to make sure I have up to date as best as I can be. I'm using the hog noses as the best example because I know the most about them. And the best examples I've got, really. So, species. In order to understand the difference between species, subspecies, and locality, I first would like to bring up the organization of organisms as a whole. So, for those of you taking a high school biology class, some of these words are going to sound familiar. Now, I'm not expecting all of you to be like, I know that. Yes. So that's why I'm including this as kind of a refresher, because I know not everyone's going to know this. Even I don't remember all the order 100% of the time. I'll flip stuff. But so it goes domain, kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, and then species. And then off of species, over here would be subspecies. So subspecies is a further definition of a species. So I'm going to write that on here. Because it's important for this video. It's completely relevant. So, domain is like eukaryotic cells versus I should remember this. Gosh, I'm failing right now. I only really care about eukaryotes because we're in the eukaryotic domain, and kingdom in this case would be reptilia. I want to say, I don't remember would phylum in this case. No, chordata's in there somewhere. I'm missing something. I know I am. Because it goes chordata, then I want to say it goes to Colubridae, colubrid, and like this would be Colubridae, colubrid. No, Colubridae, colubrid. Squamata. Squamata is the class. So it'd be Squamata, Colubrid, Colubridae, Colubrid, Heterodon, and then the different Heterodon species, and we're one subspecies. So, using my neurons. But, so, to kind of further illustrate the picture of how things were, there were, at one point, 3 distinct species of hognose. The southern hognose, the eastern hognose, and the western hognose. Now, the eastern hognose is Heterodon platyrhinos. And it'll be kind of, that one's a little bit easy to remember because platypus, rhinos, rhinoceros, they got their flat with a little, like, upturned nose, rhino, horn. You know, that's how it's easy for me to remember platyrhinos, eastern hognose. Simus is just kind of easy because it's not too complicated. That's the southern hognose, you know, SS. So, southern hognose, Heterodon simus. And then you'll get to Heterodon nasicus, which is the western hognose, or the plains hognose, depending on which verbiage you want to use. But what it was once thought as is, I'll do this. I'm just going to abbreviate with H's. I should have done this before I actually started the video. But I wasn't thinking that this would be like something I was going to illustrate. But just so you know, when I put like these bubbles around the names like that, that's to signify that they are, and the H is all for Heterodon, I want to specify that too. But the bubbles are to show that they are different species. So this was originally how it was thought to be for a long time. 3 hognose species. Eastern right here, southern right here, and western here. But because of that, and western had such a diverse population, it got divided into 3 subspecies. Which subspecies are a further form of classification that populations are separated by range or by mountains or by something in the environment, or they live in a different environment, or they have different eating habits, or there's something physically different slightly enough to distinguish a distinction. So, but not enough to garner it as a species yet. And that's where things get really hotly debated. Some people say, oh, well, that should be a species because of the X, Y, and Z, but then people are like, well, X, Y, and Z is a subcategory of this, so it should still be a subspecies. And taxonomy gets really down to the, I don't know what I was going with that. Really, like, aggressive is what I was trying to get at. But people will get into heated debates over whether this thing should be reclassified as its own genus and its own species type of thing. That happened with toads. A whole genus was made out of bufo, and I'm still salty about that. It's funny. I'm salty about toads and their names, but I am, truthfully, because bufo's the best, in my opinion. I like bufo. There's something about it saying it. It's fun. But with hognoses, in this case, Heterodon nasicus, the western hognose, was split into 3 subspecies. The dusty hognose, the plains hognose, and the Mexican hognose. Now, some of you who have watched previous videos or know me in person have heard me talk about the Mexican hognose as a species. Well, that is because I think it was as of 2015, they were elevated to species status. They had been elevated prior, but then got de-elevated. That's not a word, is it? The elevation got rescinded, and so they were no longer a species. They were considered a subspecies once again. And basically, I know full well some of the distinguishing features and reasons why they got re-elevated back up to species status back in 2015. And where is it? I actually drew this out. There's these things called Azekah Scales, which I drew them poorly, but I knew it would be hard for me to point out in a picture. Hog noses have their rostral scale, which which is that, you know, what gives them their traditional hog nose, or their classic hog nose. It's their rostral scale. So in between their rostral scale and the scale on the top of their skull, which is like in between their eyes, there are these small scales called Azekah Scales. Now, Azekah Scales, I finally learned how to pronunciate that this year, and it was something I learned over summer because I can never really tell how you tell a Mexican hognose from a Western, and so I started really hardcore getting into it, and now I can just look at it and be like, oh, that's this and that's that. And I don't even have to look at their head anymore because I know their color pattern so well enough that I can just tell. But again, that's because I was into it. Like, I had tunnel vision and all I could see were their patterns and trying to figure out how I could tell at a glance because I wanted to know, and it was just interesting to me. So, I'll draw in their eyes, I'll draw with green. This isn't to scale, by the way, but their eyes are the green things here and here. So, kind of help show you where the Azygos Scales are. So Azygos Scales, the count, was what kind of distinguished Mexican hognoses from Westerns, and is what allowed them to become a species. But then, not only was there physical difference, but there was behavioral differences, which is another big thing that you want to have, and you want to have clearly documented and clearly observed by multiple people if you're trying to fight for something to become a species. And so Mexican hognoses, which kind of distinctifies them from traditional hognose behavior, is they primarily feed on reptiles, which is different from most hognoses because in several videos you've heard me say that they are strictly toad eaters in the wild. Mexican hognoses are the exception. It's a behavior that not many other of the hognoses have. It is something unique pretty much to Mexican hognoses. Not saying that Westerns and Southerns and Easterns won't eat lizards, but they are going to much so prefer a toad over a lizard. Hence why you have to scent a lot of stuff with amphibian smelling meats, which, sorry, I did the burp thing. Amphibian smelling meats are going to be, or amphibian smelling, I should have done the air quotes there. Fish are amphibian smelling, so you can trick them with fish smell. Because it's kind of amphibian smelly-ish, so, and they like that. But Mexican hognoses, I've heard you can scent with lizards, like gecko tails, fence lizard tails, things like that, to get them to eat. And it is because their diet consists much more of lizards than it does of amphibians, and it's because we don't have a whole lot of amphibians out here. They come out during monsoon season. Well, that's one time of the year where their food is going to be plentiful. The rest of the year, it's like, well, crap, I'm going to die, I guess, because it's just not there. The food isn't there to support them. So they had to evolve. They had to adapt to be able to continue on their species. And ultimately, that is what led them to becoming their own species. That and their size difference. They are significantly smaller. I think they are actually the smallest North American hognose species. They max out at, I want to say, 2 feet. 2 feet is not very big for most of the hognoses. The Easterns, I want to say, get 3 to 4. But the female Western hognoses, they get 3, like 3 to 4 as well. So, some I've heard some extremely getting, like, way out of that range. Getting to 5 feet, but I haven't personally seen that. And some of those hognoses are old, like they would never get to that size in the wild. I personally do not believe. But, so their size, their behavior, their color pattern is also different. I'm going to express that when I actually have one. So there are going to be several addendums to this video in the future, hopefully to the point where I can show off all 5. But now to the next subspecies. So, the one I'm going to cover next is the plains hognose. That's Azekah nasicus. That is the traditional Western hognose. That is what everyone thinks of when they think of Western hognose. That is that. Because with subspecies, you want to still have the traditional variant expressed in the subspecies. At least that's what I've come to that conclusion based on all the subspecies I've seen and how everyone refers to them. There will always be a subspecies that is the same genus and the same original scientific name, and then the same scientific name after that, to signify that the subspecies total also includes what was the founder species of the other subspecies. So that is why I have Heterodon nasicus nasicus. And that's how you'd read that for subspecies. So this would be Heterodon nasicus kennerlii and Heterodon nasicus gloidii, which gloidii is the one I found out recently. I knew it was a subspecies. I didn't know it got elevated the same time that kennerlii, Mexican hognose, got elevated. So my interest in them has peaked quite a lot. Because for me, actually, it's difficult for me to tell now the nasicus and the kennerlii, or not the nasicus and the kennerlii, it used to be that, but now it's the nasicus and the gloidii apart. It seems to be a significant darker color palette. The saddles are much darker, like almost black. Other than that, I think it's also the range that they are found in. They are only found, I think, in 5 states, which is similar to the southern hognose, which currently is only found in 2 or 3. So, and the Mexican hognoses are found in 3 as well. Arizona, New Mexico, and Texas. And because of that, species elevation is important, and it's a thing because species kind of get funded when they're endangered. Efforts are put towards them when they're declining rapidly, and is to conserve the species. It's for conservation purposes. It's not just because, oh, well, I think this name sounds cooler or something like that. No, it's for the betterment of the species. That's why it's always debated, and some people will fight against a species getting elevated because it will mess up this other species' funding and stuff like that. I've heard stuff like that happening. But today I'm just talking about the western hognose and its division into 3 different species. Now, as for what fully distinctifies, I'm assuming there's probably a scale count, a total scale count, that it has to be within this range, or the color pattern has to occur on these scales in order for it to be considered a gloidii versus a nasicus. Because I know that that's also part of the Mexican hognose versus nasicus, is that kennerlii has these patterns on these scales, and nasicus has these colors on these scales, and it's different. It'll be shifted by a couple of scales, but still, a couple of scales is a lot when a color pattern is shifted. Or it'll be stretched across more scales, or shrunk onto fewer scales. So it'll be either the expansion or condension. Is that a word, condension? I'm going with it. Expansion or condension of the pattern. So it'll come down to small, minute things like that, but that can be enough to elevate something to a species status. Which can then, if deemed a species and research is done and it shows that, hey, these aren't doing too well, they'll get marked on the IUCN Red List, which is the Endangered Species Act Red List, and basically get protected legally from poaching, collection, and intentional death. Which will then help hopefully allow the species to rebound, recover, and eventually get off the Red List. Now, sadly, there are fewer and fewer success stories like that of things bouncing back. But that is why I'm guessing that people are so like, oh, well, this needs to be a species for the hognoses, because hognoses across the country are not doing well in any of their ranges. And it's because they like ruderal habitat, which ruderal is disturbed habitat. It, like roads going through countrysides and stuff, they like it, and that's the problem. They are slow and they are stupid, and they are easy roadkill victims. Which I think is why it's so important. They all got elevated to species status because gloidii is endangered in one of the states. I want to say it's protected by the state of Missouri, I want to say. And I obviously want to find some, and so in Missouri I will take pictures and look at them, but I will not collect. I will collect in states where it is legal, and they have done research to make sure the species isn't collapsing. Same with Simus. The only state that it's not collapsing at an alarming rate is Florida. So, and the neighbors, I think all the neighboring states except for, I want to say South Carolina and Georgia, all their populations are gone. So they're not doing too well either. Western hognoses aren't getting hurt as hard, but I don't know if they're being as researched because they have a much larger range than the gloidi and the Siamis, which both only have a handful of states. The eastern hognose, again, also has a ton of states in its range. So I don't think that... I think in some states they are protected. I know some people that photograph them will not give out their location in fears of poaching, because that is a big problem for hognoses now with their rise in popularity. And to expand upon that, poaching in this sense is not the killing of the animal, it is the illegal capture and selling of the animal. So that is starting to become a problem for all of these species. Obviously, I'm going to do it the legal route, get my permits that I need to collect them, and do it in areas where it is legal for me to collect. Ugh, piece of tinfoil? I don't know what that was. But I just went on a big rant on how these species are divided. So I guess this is more so about the subspecies division of Heterodon and the split into 2 more species. And the total 5 species, because I've mentioned it but I never really said them. Now I know that there are 5, and so I gotta... This is a bucket list for me and to see. But another, just so you guys know before I run out of time here. On this wall, something I've decided I think I'm going to do is target species, things I want to see. I'm going to put an X through them when I found them. So then you guys, if I don't get like right away to making the video, or it's still in editing, but I'm able to upload videos with this in the in view, you guys will know without me making a super big deal about it until the reveal video that I'd seen it. So I think I'm going to do that, and then whatever other decorations you guys come up with, I'm going to try to fit there too. But that's pretty much it for this video. I'm going to go more in depth on subspecies, species, and locality in another video, because I didn't really get to locality in this one. So it'll be probably a 2 to 3 part series for this. But it's been Bring Me the Boa. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one, and hopefully I'll get this series actually going pretty well. But don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Tell me if you found this video was interesting or not. I'll be happy to make more. I'll see you guys in the next one.